I saw something recently about AI and the rise of AI.
Was it the tentacle monster?
Well, there's a lot of those. Something interesting earlier about technology, and specifically about technology. I saw something recently about AI and the rise of AI.
Was it the tentacle monster?
Well, there's a lot of those.
But you can imagine like the AI being, or like the internet itself with an AI attached to it being this like big black blob with tentacles all stripped out.
You talking about Ben?
Huh?
Talking about Ben on the Umbrella Academy?
I don't know.
I
forget who said that.
I'm just supposed to keep going.
But you could imagine that you have it's basically like a tentacle with somebody's face on it. And it's like, it's not the person that you think it is, but it's AI talking to you, or the robot talking to you, or the internet talking to you, or whatever. And it's telling you all these good things, but it's attached to something very like, terrible.
If it's not here, it's definitely coming soon. AGI, artificial general intelligence, where it's able to...
I think that's already here.
Well, there are definitely versions of it, but for as far as for it to be extremely fleshed out and capable of really operating on its own without input from something else, I don't know if we know that for sure or not, but there's things that can behave in a way like what you're saying if somebody else is prompting it to do these things, or has built a set of instructions anyway.
When people talk about AI, there's like two different types of technologies. You have like what you said, the artificial general intelligence, which is something that can like reason, I guess you could say. But then you have the algorithmic process, which is not necessarily artificial intelligence, because there's nothing intelligent about it. It's just it's a pathway forward that whenever you type in something and then it just directs you down a path.
It gives you a result very quickly, and you can continue to refine that until you have what you want out of it.
But the artificial intelligence that I think everybody's like terrified of, like what you said, it's something completely different. Something that, like what you said, doesn't need an input, doesn't need a prompt. It just does.
It's just out, it's growing, it's thinking, it's learning, and there is machine learning. There are pieces of all of that have existed for a long time.
Yeah.
But if it's all put together somewhere, no one's out there blasting it out, hey, we did it. Everyone wants to have done it at this point.
Well, you could imagine military technology is always about 50 years or more ahead of what the consumer population knows exists. So you could theoretically say that if we have the AI, so to speak, to the level that it is now, there's probably something else a lot bigger
been
elsewhere.
Doing that for a long time. Well, I mean, AI has been around for a long time, but the thing I was trying to say earlier, just a quick little blip here. Artificial intelligence. I gotta get this out.
Stop interrupting me.
It was can't even think now. No. It was artificial intelligence is designed for the artists, for the wealthy to behave like artists. It cuts out what's needed, what makes artists special, I guess. So for people that have all the resources, they can go and create whatever they want, whenever they want it now, as long as they have enough resources to do it. Previously, it was like, well, you actually have to learn how to do this thing if you want to paint a picture or make a song or write a story or a script, whatever it might be.
Like you would literally have to go find a programmer to create you an app, and now you can just ask ChatGPT what's the best way to go about doing this, and it'll give you a code.
Yeah, So so here's where I see AI. Mm-hmm. A lot of the intelligence out there is like, it is generated from what you do. Right. And they're picking it up off of your likes on your social media, off of how much time you spend watching certain characteristics of videos. Like if it's a sports, it can be your Ring camera at home. It's watching if you're bringing in a Kroger bag or a Walmart bag, or if you're bringing in Coke products or Pepsi products. All this stuff is generated from what we do. Mm-hmm. But the one step that I'm trying to pay attention to it in is where is its connection to our lives. And what I mean by that is usually everything we function off of is out of connection. So I'm sitting here with you two today because we have connected somewhere previously.
Right.
It wasn't that I fit an algorithm. It wasn't that I fit, you know what I mean? It was a connection that all three of us were connected to. And so out of that, we have this connection and we sit shoulder to shoulder and it's part of our lives. I'll watch your other programs. We are at events outside of this. And so, but when I look at that is the connection to our kids.
Yes.
And so when we used to look at the destruction of the home, when we used to look at the divorce rate, and they would break it up into race. And I get it. And I think there has been intentionally things done to certain races in this country that are wrong. I'm not denying any of that. But when we look at the destruction of the family and the need for basically a father's, where's the connection of the kid to a man then? Okay, that's got to come from somewhere. My concern is that now the new connection for a young child seeking a father, and they don't have it inside the living room and there's no relationship with this, is we can artificially give them one that they paint their own picture of it.
Right. They create their own.
And if you're generating what you want those kids to perceive as a father, then there could be a lot of destruction in that. Because then it depends on who's on the other end of it.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? If you're painting the picture for them, and when you're talking about you sitting down with your daughter and you're going through these things and you're having these deep conversations, I know that she's sitting there ready just to go to the dinner table because she don't want to hear it. You know what I mean? But something's planted inside of her through those conversations that is going to take place in her life. That's going to, you see what I'm saying? It's almost like a seed planted.
Yeah.
Now, what if that's coming from a phone?
Yeah. Right. Right.
What if that's coming through an app where this is my reality?
And what is the end goal for that app?
Yeah.
You know, what do they want actually guiding them to?
Yeah. And so, and if we're looking at generations of that, I mean, it's already bad enough to go around town and just watch how many people are. I'm surprised we don't have people just walking out in the middle of the street because they have no idea where they're walking to and they're looking at their phone.
In the cities.
Oh man,
yeah, that's what I'm sitting here thinking. Thank God we live in the woods. It's just a deer that almost runs over us instead of a car.
They started putting the traffic signals in the sidewalks because people are looking down. They see the green, yellow, red in the sidewalk.
That's a good idea. It's terrible, but I hope it saves some lives. Good grief, man! Look up from your phones, people.
Well, anyway, yeah. I mean. I hope it saves some lives. That's sweet. That's nice of you, Ross.
Yeah, you know, I don't know if I should say this, but
you shouldn't. This will be edited. Sorry, y'all missed it.
Yeah, I've had the idea for a while. You know, if a peanut can take you out, do you really need to be here? You know,
if a peanut can take you out, do you really need to?
I don't know.
That went darker than I thought it was.
Not that I want anything bad to happen to any people like that. But this is where my head goes.
Okay,
you know,
so we probably need to cut this whole selection out. But did you realize? Have you heard? And I think me and Tanya were on vacation time, or maybe it was a business trip, and she was with me or something. But we were sitting in a hotel room. It wasn't really a vacation. It was like, anyway, doesn't matter. We're sitting in a hotel room. We have nothing to do, so we're watching. Maybe it's History Channel or something. And it was about how North Carolina. This is years ago. They had a program that if by the state you were deemed, how do I say this politically proper? Okay, I think it would have been the word retarded would use then.
Right,
okay,
right.
And I'm sure that has a definition to it that's probably not distorted this term. Okay, so I mean, you know, but if you couldn't think for yourself, they would make it where you could not have children.
Oh,
yes. No, right.
Okay, and then I also heard of where, like, if a mentally unstable, no, I'm not just talking about unstable, I mean, if they were to connect with another one, and like that they would basically take those people out of society.
Right. They're trying to limit. Not
population control necessarily, but to the point that these people with these problems are not going to be in our population.
Right.
Well, and so I think this was in the might have been earliest, but I think it was like in the 1920s or something.
I remember hearing about that.
And I'm sitting here thinking, and you hear all these conspiracy theories, and like, we don't, some people don't buy it, but I look at things and like, okay, if our health system right now is weighing down our nation, what are they doing to solve it? Because, I mean, I'm going to tell you, I think I shouldn't say this, but I mean, I think cancer is curable.
Oh, yeah.
I think it makes way too much money to go stick radiation in somebody and watch them suffer for about 5 years.
The system is incentivized to keep people sick because that's where they're paid.
It's all
you're
comes
paid
back
in
to
treating illness.
And so when we talk about population control or something like that, I don't think that's too far of a stretch to call it conspiracy. When we look at the past and what they've done to try to make sure certain people weren't able to continue in our society. I'm not saying that they would take them out back and kill those people, but they sure did separate them and made sure that they weren't able to have offspring.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So they cut generations of people, and whether your view on it as far as health-wise is right or wrong is where America's disturbed in our moral compass these days. But what if that comes back around now today, or your children are being fed, we need smarter people, and we don't,
Well, that's already being pushed with the climate crisis, so to speak. It's you have all these people talking about how there shouldn't be so many people on the planet.
Right.
We need less
don't have
people.
Enough space.
Like people all for population control just to help the environment.
Okay. And so, all right, so you look at that, and I'm with you on that. Okay, so I had one guy tell me, they said, and he was talking about, you cannot deny climate's changing. Okay, at first they called it global warming, right?
Yeah, they changed the language.
That's one direction.
Yep.
That means that the earth is warming. Okay, so I'm the type that I had one guy tell me one time, a pastor tell me, and I'm not sure he's right on this, but we were talking about the age of rocks and the age of bones and all this stuff. And he looked at me, and I mean, because they put out all these years that, like, I'm like, man, that wasn't here. Earth was not here. He said, how do we know when Earth was formed and what age was it formed?
Right.
If Adam was formed by God as man.
Right, as an adult.
Without being an infant. Without going through these childhood years and teenage years we're talking about here today. If Adam was formed as man, the trees that were upon the earth, where were they formed as?
Right.
How many years? How were they developed?
Yeah.
Were they saplings? Were they? You see what I'm saying? So the rocks, when we age it, we don't know how to age it. We're going by what we've seen over these past, thousands of years. We documented it.
They go by the carbon.
Yeah, that's what
carbon element dating. 14. I think is what it is, where they measure the radiation because it go. But there's no way to determine the speed in which the radiation, like it could be faster or slower at any other point in time, and
where was this starting point?
Yeah,
right.
where was
you don't know? How
plus, do you God created it. That's what He said to me, and I'm sitting there going like, okay, I'm taking a step back. And I'm like, I'm with you because I want to fight all these millions of years, and I'm like, but there's really no way. But God's creation, if he like these stones, these slates we see right here in front of us, and I don't know if there's any behind us, but
in
we're
theory,
sitting
then when God created the earth could have been formed looking like it was here for billions of years.
Yeah. Well, and then the other thing is that they said, well, there was an ice age 14,000 years ago. Okay, I don't know that there was an ice age 14,000 years ago.
We're coming out of an ice age, actually.
I do know that at 14,000 years ago, that if it was a whole lot deeper on the earth, that we started warming from back then. Mm-hmm. So whether you want to call it global warming or climate change, it's well documented, according to scientists, that 14,000 years ago, there was a whole lot more ice upon this earth. A whole lot more. And according to their studies and everything, well then what caused global warming then? Mm-hmm. Because we had no factories.
Right.
We had we weren't burning gas and oils and all these. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. There wasn't all these thousands of people on the earth. There wasn't, the population was down a little bit. And so, but what caused it? What caused it to warm and to melt that ice? And I look at this and I see that all that they're presenting is, I don't even think they believe half of what they say. I think they're just putting a focus on it to try to get us to sit here and feed off of it.
See, and it's funny because they go off of they go off of presuppositions.
Right.
Like,
yeah,
this,
well, let's
why
start with
X.
this. We're going to accept that this is the case. Otherwise, we have nothing to talk about. So, yeah.
It's almost like your list here of feelings. You know the color chart.
Yeah.
You know the core colors.
Yes. Yeah.
They're almost in, a lot of them are almost in every color you get. You know what I'm saying? They might leave out a red, but you'll have a yellow, a blue, and a green that are mixing into these. And then the same vice versa. You might leave out a blue, but red and green and yellow be in it. That's the way I feel about these feelings. And that's the way it's almost like they're trying to tell us that this was the core. They're trying to create a core in this that really they don't know if it was there or not.
Yeah.
And so you can't determine anything else unless you use our core.
Right, exactly, and that's the
thing. And it's like, wait a second, this is not the 4 primary colors here, buddy. You might think that's the primary, but you have no facts to back that. But look at all these facts we created off of it.
Right. Yeah.
So anyway, I'm probably getting off on a tangent.
It's wild to...
See, you're going to lose viewers.
Yeah.
Sorry, y'all.
Or create a lot of hateful comments.
Hey, whatever.
I'm not trying to divide us, y'all. I'm just saying I understand both sides of it, because if you look, I don't disagree that there is things changing in the climate. I might disagree on how that's happening.
Yeah, it's definitely changing.
And
I disagree on
the frame in which they talk about things is like the time frame. It changes depending on the sentence.
Right.
Because they could be like, oh yeah, in the last couple thousand years, but then they're like, well, how did you determine that? And then they're like, oh, but over the last 150,000 years. And then you're jumping back and forth between these two time frames. So I don't know. It's just the way that they talk about things. Like, they talk about thousands of years, and then they go to 150,000 years to justify the 1,000 years.
Yeah.
So
they got to realize I'm from a generation that was told paper bags were bad, we were destroying the earth, and gave us plastic. Okay, at the grocery store. Now they're telling us plastic is destroying the earth. We need to go back to bringing our own recycled bags that's probably made out of either paper. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
I'm from a generation that was told that plastic was the next good thing. And acid rain was going to kill us all. Yeah. In the 80s, acid rain was going to take out... I was going to be playing outside baseball with my friends because we didn't have all these other... I was before Nintendo. The only thing you could have inside was Atari and a little tennis ball guy. But, I mean, I'm sitting here like, acid rain... When it started to rain, there was a time in the 80s where you looked up at the sky and was like...
Is this it?
Yeah, is this going to be the time where this just melts my skin off and I'm going to be laying out here in the middle of the yard?
I saw a meme that was kind of similar to this once, where it was like 3 guys standing in a Mexican standoff, and one was like, my great-grandpa full of lead... Or no, my grandpa full of lead, my dad full of asbestos, me full of microplastics, and they're all pointing at each other.
It's, but I don't want plastic bottles floating down the river I live on.
Right.
I don't want my kids to be left a generation that's where we're not taking care of Earth. I'm 100% for taking care of the Earth.
Right.
Yeah, we have to be good stewards of the garden we were put in.
But until they're creating facts that just aren't facts. They're creating scenarios that just are not real.
Right.
And instead of taking time to study them out themselves, it's almost like it's a lot of it's a political agenda, but it's an agenda for power.
Right.
And as long as we can keep you believing this, then we have power over you. I often say the government, and I'll tell a lot of people, I think both parties are out to get you.
See, the way so if you know anything about what's the scientific study for it, botanism or whatever, study of plants.
Yeah. Botany.
If you know what exactly it is that they feed on, that they pull out of it's all the carbon that's in the air that the trees and the plants, that's how they grow big and green.
Yeah.
You take the carbon out of the air, what's going to happen to the plants?
Well, another fun part about carbon, they talk about, the levels are increasing. So at what level is it actually going to be like this terrible thing's going to happen? There is no level. There's not. They're not.
And it's the only thing that that's the only thing that they're watching. It's really the only anything of the atmosphere. It's the only thing they're watching is carbon. So like we're all dependent on this one measure that's just a part of what what kills me. Here's what's funny. This is a tidbit for y'all. So everybody out there that lives in a very large city, what I call a concrete jungle, And the reason I call it concrete jungle is because you don't have trees. You're not sitting out here in the middle of this, and this is common.
Right.
You're more likely to be down the road store. Quit yelling at us country people for destroying the environment. Concrete alone is doing more to the environment than anything we're doing out here.
Huh.
We could cut this whole timber, and if I go pour a pad of concrete for a skyscraper, I've done more to destroy the environment than anything. So please, I understand your big city and your conveniences. Quit telling us poor people out here in the middle of the country that we're doing all this to you. No, you're feeding it. You're sitting in the middle of a big city going like, yeah, they're destroying the environment out there. They got a big old gas guzzler truck.
They got cows.
Yeah.
All those cow
Farting
farts
all over the place.
They got cows and pigs.
Please.
They're making life terrible for us city folk here.
Yes, please. Anyway, I just went off on that's a bad rant. I love city folk.
see
I
what
love
was
city
funny?
folk. Y'all people,
The town that we came from,
we're weird.
The
Y'all
town that-
weird. We're all good.
town that we
We're all
came
weird,
from
yeah.
had close to like 100,000 population, I think. Yeah, pretty close. It was like 80, 90, somewhere around there. But we live just down the street from an oil refinery. And you'd I worked security for that oil refinery, but I would leave just after my shift, and like in the wintertime especially, you would have like a kind of residue on your windshield that like you would turn on the windshield wipers and go "Wee," and it'd just smear, and then the fog or then your breath would hit it, and
Yeah,
then
and
it
it
would
just
like
stick, and
it would just
couldn't
stick.
see nothing. You're like Ace Ventura hanging out the window.
Yeah,
Driving a car. Yeah.
yeah. No, it's
Ace
bad.
Ventura
We lived down the
reference,
street
that's
from it, and the whole place smelled like. Well, there was a bread factory too, so the whole place smelled like yeast.
That's fun.
So that's fun.
Yeast in
But
the air.
I love being out here. I feel like I can breathe so much better.
Definitely.
Like people are like, "Oh, the pollen's my allergies. It's killing me," and then I'm like, "I don't care."
let it.
So with a town of 100,000 people, and I'm sure here in about 50 years, that town will become a study of why everybody died of a certain disease they didn't know that the oil refineries were. Anyway.
Yeah.
But in a town of 100,000, or, that kind of population, which is not a very large population if you're looking at the big cities, that's sort of a joke. We're sitting in, a county of 12,000, a town of 4,000, it's yeah. So, but in the 100,000, so like over where I was from, so about 100,000, that would be, not too far from here. About anyway, what did you see as far as I don't know, as far as like, I guess the adversities of the way issues were treated in society compared to in a small community like you're in now. And what I mean by that is like, we often talked about crime when you start getting up to the 100,000 range, you started talking about crime. I know in our society, crime, homelessness, poverty, and there's usually a lot of people are brought in for medical reasons, It's not going to be your large hospitals, but it's going to be your intro into before you're going to, let's say a St. Jude or a Vanderbilt or something like that. So did you see that a lot as far as in your area? I imagine industry had to be pretty popular to handle that many people.
Yeah, there was a lot of industry. There was several like major manufacturers and things like that. There was also like a Pepsi plant that you could go to work at, which I thought it was funny because I knew some people who worked there, and they were like, "Yeah, where the Pepsi spills all over the floor, it eats away the concrete."
It's a great cleaning agent.
Yeah, it's just like
Just run it through you a couple times, you'll feel it.
Nothing
But
like
did
that.
you see anything that sort of sticks out to you that you look back today and sort of, and I hate to be the one asking questions, y'all are the host here, I'm sort of,
No, that's
No,
good.
I mean,
forgive me,
Yeah.
but I think we learn off of
there
other
was a
people's
very big
perspectives.
spiritual problem. Like there was a lot of money problems. There was a lot of drug addiction. There was a lot of just crime and violence. A lot of violence. A lot of shootings. I actually have a video on my phone of one night I went outside, and it's like a freaking war zone. You had like everywhere, people firing from all kinds of different angles. Like it was, and then that's when we found out that Kayla was pregnant. I was like, we got to go to the woods. I don't want to raise a daughter here.
Yeah.
Not a daughter, for sure not.
Yeah.
But
So that's what, I just think about that, and I think about, I lived always outside of cities. I grew up in a decent sized town down in Mississippi, one of the larger towns from Mississippi. It wasn't the capital, but you know. Mm-hmm. And I grew up there and then moved to a small town in North Mississippi. And the difference of those two towns were night and day. I started somewhat my drug addiction before I moved to the small town, but the small town sort of, there wasn't nothing else there. I felt like I was out sort of in the middle of nowhere. And it's not that I needed a lot of things. It was just, you know, I just used the excuse there's nothing to do here. And so my drug problem, but everybody knew everybody. So it wasn't like you could hide stuff like that. It wasn't big enough to, it wasn't big enough because it was like here, Hohenwald.
Right.
If you heard my name in a drug charge, 4,000 people would know exactly who I was and what was going on and would be talking about it. If you take that over to, let's just say, Columbia or Jackson, which are not big towns, but they're much bigger than this.
Right.
Not that many people are going to talk
handful.
about it. Yeah.
Well, see, the thing about where we came from was that there was no hiding it. There was no need to hide it. Everyone was the same. Everyone was
what was expected.
More or less okay with it. It was expected of you. Yeah. You know, like you weren't cool unless you took part in a specific aspect of the culture.
Right.
And that's just what the culture was. It was just there was a sickness over the place, and nobody knew that they were sick.